Good morning and welcome to Big Bets on Campus Live. It's Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and this is the college basketball betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as they will each and every Saturday, my fellow BBOC co-hosts Mike Calabrese and Greg Wadell. We will be joining you each and every Saturday through the end of the season. We'll have other shows throughout conference tournament and the NCAA tournament as well. Make sure you subscribe to Big Bets on Campus as well. We'll preview every single conference tournament along with the guys from the three-man weave. A lot to get to today. We'll give out two best bets. We'll talk a little marquee matchup between Illinois and Duke in prime time. Give out some Moneyline underdogs that we fancy. And in future weeks, we will have Nick Giffen on to give his favorite player props, which he usually crushes. He had some tech issues this morning. And also, apologies if my voice sounds a little different, dealing with a little illness that I caught from betting on Illinois. So we will get through it together, gentlemen. Before we get to today's slate, yesterday we had some kind of marquee results. We had, Greg, I'll start with you. Michigan State, Michigan State with a huge road win. They're surging. Their depth is great, but when Richardson plays a lot, they're a much more dangerous team. I think Michigan has a backcourt problem, and that zone isn't going to surprise anyone any longer. How concerned are you about Michigan scale 1 to 10?
Very. I mean, it's kind of the opposite of what Michigan State's strengths showed in this game. Great backcourt play, great depth. Michigan has neither of those things. Trey Donaldson is tucking himself into his shell right now, and the alternatives are Roddy Gale, who's shooting 10% from three in conference play, and Reuben Jones, who just is an offensive liability at the Big Ten level. I don't know where you go. I mean, I thought Michigan's bigs did their part and showed up in this game, but I came away so impressed with Michigan State. I mean, this was a team that was very good for the first 3 months of the season without a star. They are still as good at everything they were doing the first 3 months of the season, but now they have a bona fide star. I can't imagine there's five guards in the country playing better than Jace Richardson right now. He was ready for the moment of this rivalry game, and he just has been sensational. Izzo's playing him 33 minutes a game since that loss on the West Coast trip. He's just completely changed the rotations. I think it bodes well for Michigan State to make a run down the stretch of this season.
Yeah, there was a lot of fool's gold with Michigan in their record. I mean, they were winning so many close games that you kind of had a feeling a result like that might have been coming. We'll see how they bounce back. I believe at Nebraska up next. The other result that kind of caught my eye was Villanova just destroying Marquette. Yes, Villanova, I think they started out 14 of 20 from three, so you're not going to win many games when the other team shoots like that. But Marquette has appeared broken pretty much for all of 2025. I mean, if you filter since January 1st per Torvik, this is a team that's outside the top 50 overall. Like two of their most recent wins, yeah, I mean, they dominated Seton Hall after Seton Hall upset UConn and then DePaul. They have not been impressive. They just look like a team that I can't see making a deep run in March. Anything catch your eye with that game or elsewhere, Mike?
Yeah, that game to be, patting ourselves on the back. We said 3 weeks ago that we were out on Marquette, and a big part of it is, yes, there's going to be that 3-point variance. Villanova, it was just in the cards they were going to win that game. But Marquette could have showed up offensively. But the issue is if Cam Jones doesn't play hero ball, if he doesn't have a game where he's scoring 20 plus and facilitating 7 to 10 assists, their offense is dead. They just can't get it together. And a lot of dirt has been heaped on Illinois, and rightfully so. But we need to start having a conversation about Marquette not making the tournament because what is happening with them? You mentioned the wins that they have in recent weeks, Seton Hall and DePaul, a DePaul team that went 15 rounds with them on the road earlier in the season. So it wasn't a fluke, in terms of what DePaul did the first time. This is just an issue for me with the balance offensively for the Eagles. They don't have it. And interestingly, on the Villanova side of things, I was at the St. John's game. They win in an upset, and St. John's is going to struggle at times to be able to put the ball in the basket. Still credit to Villanova. But that game started with the student section booing Kyle Neptune. Now he's got the win over St. John's. He's got the win over Marquette. It looks like he's maybe 2 or 3 more wins away from saving his job, which is really interesting because I still think Villanova is a marquee job and he's not the right guy to fill it. But at this point, he's saving himself. So they're kind of in this weird middle ground where unless they win a game or two in the tournament, are they really going to feel as though it's a success bringing him back? And now he's winning too much to fire him. So it's just a tricky spot on the main line for the Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Marquette found something with Lowry. He had a big game offensively. They just need to find some other options. But no, I mean, Marquette's going to make the tournament, but like their non-conference is too good. I mean, they have wins over Purdue, Maryland, Wisconsin, neutral Georgia. The Maryland game is on the road, but they are since January 1st not playing like a team that belongs in the dance. We'll see if they can get it together. A couple easy games coming up, and then I believe they close the season with St. John's and UConn, maybe. So we'll see if Marquette and Shaka Smart can get it together. But let's move on to today's slate, and we'll get to our first best bets. Calabrese, I'll throw it to you first. What do you got?
I love the Zags at home at the Kennel in a revenge spot. This has multiple layers in terms of why I think Mark Few's team is going to run away with this one in the rematch, a revenge spot. National TV exposure, this persistent narrative that they're playing their way onto the bubble and perhaps they won't even make the tournament. It's so rare for him to be able to motivate his team and say that people are doubting us. And that first meeting in Moraga, they took them down to the wires 58-58 on a night that they just couldn't throw it in the ocean. They finished 3 for 17 from long range. They couldn't get a bucket in the final minute to be able to push it to overtime or potentially win that game. But Graham Ike still played very well. He gave the Gales 24-8 there. He has been a menace in February, particularly on the glass. And really the question here is, can Few and his staff get anything out of the guard rotation? Is it Hickman? Is it Battle? Battle, by the way, has 20-plus points in 3 of his last 7 games. All 3 of those outbursts have come at the Kennel. So I think you're going to see him play really well in this spot. And listen, I know it's difficult to fade Randy Bennett because he's such a consistent coach. His teams play so consistently. And when you look at the starting lineup, these guys have a lot of experience together. So you're probably going to get a B plus, A minus performance out of them, regardless of venue, whether it's in conference play in the WCC or in March Madness. But I think a high variance spot like this for the Zags, I think they're going to win by double digits. I liked it at 4.5. I'd play it all the way up to 7.
Yeah, we'll see. Look, we saw that Gonzaga went a little zone and kind of got St. Mary's out of their offense in that first meeting. I'd like to see Few mix in some press and some pressure to just force St. Mary's to take more time before they get into their offense. We've seen him do that in the past. He didn't do it at all in the first meeting. I think that's something that he may utilize here, but pretty good spot for the Zags. And you're laying 5.5. So if they're going to win, they probably got to cover because this is a team that if the game is close at the end, they seemingly cannot close out a close game. Greg, where are you going for your first best bet?
Well, I'm going to one of the marquee games of the day, and we're going to get your guys' thoughts on this later in the show. But I am going to just take the bait here. I'm going to take Duke minus 10.5 against Illinois. I believe it was 9.5 last night, up to 10.5 this morning. I want to dump all Illinois stock. And Stuck, you mentioned you've gotten the Illinois sniffles. So has the whole team. I mean, we have no idea who's going to suit up for the Illini in this game. I don't think Brad Underwood knows who's healthy, and I don't think he has much of a choice. Last game, they started Jake Davis for the first time because everybody else is unavailable or in and out of the lineup. And he left the game after playing 8 minutes, sprinted to the locker room, never to be seen again. Their starting center all season, Tomovicic, had to bus himself to the game separate from the team in their blowout loss to Wisconsin. It's a weird season for the Illini that has had a lot of strange non-basketball related illness, and I just don't think it's going to get any easier. Certainly not on a quick turnaround in Madison Square Garden against the team that analytically is the best team in the country. Nothing that Illinois does well, even at full strength, maps well to something they can exploit against Duke. They're really good inside offensively, but they don't even want to go inside offensively as much as they should. Well, Duke's the number one 2-point defense in the country. Illinois needs to get to the free throw line and get easy points. Duke doesn't foul. Illinois needs to generate second chances. Duke is too good of a rebounding team to even make that happen. And then if you really want to flip it, how are they going to guard this Duke offense? They have to put Benham Rickhouse or Trey White on Cooper Flagg. Trey White has been in the doghouse, had 4 straight coaches do not plays. And Benham Rickhouse is one of the biggest defensive liabilities at the high major level. I just don't see it here. I think John Shire's going to have his guys up for this marquee game that he's been saying he wants to schedule more of in the coming years. And it's really the first time in 3 months Duke's been able to get up for a big game other than the North Carolina game. They're up 25 in the first 10 minutes of that game against Carolina. Give me the Blue Devils big.
What about Clemson? The Clemson game. I mean, that's the only team in the field that they've played since December 8th. To play devil's advocate, I'll break the seal because we're going to talk about this game in just a second. But yeah, I bet Illinois. I might just look really dumb doing it, but I think I'm betting on this potentially being the bottom of the market on the Illini. Maybe they're just too sick, and they'll get blown out of the water. But there's a chance that they're healthier than they were against Wisconsin. At least there's a couple extra days. Maybe they don't have diarrhea this time around. But considering everything that has happened to Illinois, all the injuries, all of the illnesses, the mono, the flu, the diarrhea, you name it, they're still one of 9. If you go based on the Ken Pom national title criteria of adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency, it's still one of 9 teams that you would look at as a potential national title contender. Do I think they're consistent enough? No. But this team is still really talented. And you said they don't want to go inside. That's a problem in a lot of matchups. That's maybe a good thing here against Duke because you can't really go inside against them. So spread it out. And they're overdue to make some shots. I mean, not only do they have injuries and illnesses, they do a good job of taking away the 3 outside of picking pop 5s who Duke doesn't have. But teams are still shooting like 38% since January 1st. They're shooting 29%. They're not a great 3-point shooting team, but they should be around like 32, 33. This team just has too much talent if you're going to give me double digits on a neutral court against Duke. And the difference in quality of leagues has to matter some. I mean, Illinois, the Big Ten is like historically good from top to bottom this year. And the ACC is going to get maybe 3 teams in to the dance. And I just mentioned Duke hasn't beat a tournament team since December 8th. So I think Duke's really good. They're one of the 2 best teams in the country, but Illinois is as talented as any team in the country. They can play with Duke here. I'm going to bet that this is the bottom. I could look really foolish, but
the one thing I would say, Stuck, when Illinois loses, they tend to lose big. 5 of the 7 losses in this really rough stretch have been by 9 or more points. I feel like there's bottom out potential with emotional swings with this team that make me a little more comfortable laying the big number.
That's fair. Duke doesn't at least KJ has to limit the bad turnovers. Duke doesn't at least turn you over, which is I think a good thing for Illinois. And I think Illinois' defensive structure, Flagg's going to get his. That's just a given. Let him get his. Make sure no one else goes off from 3, and they can hang in here from a shot volume perspective. So I took the points. We'll see how it plays out. Looking forward to it. We'll talk a little bit more about this game in just a second. But for my best bet, I'm going with my Texas A&M Aggies at home against Tennessee. I think basically what this boils down to is Texas A&M can play its game. What do they want to do? They want to play half-court grinders, ugly it up. They basically want to play a football game, and they want to live on the offensive glass. And this Tennessee team is a bit more vulnerable than you might believe on the glass. Additionally, they're turning it over a ton. I think 20, especially on the road in league play, like over 20% turnover rate. They're not getting to the line, which you need to do against Texas A&M, and they're just not turning teams over as much as they did in years prior. I think their SEC league play turnover rate this year is like 16%. They were number 1 last year, like 18, 19%. So I think A&M can play its game on the offensive glass. Where you beat A&M, you get out and transition and run. Their transition defense is very weak. Tennessee's not going to do that. And then you got to hit open 3s. Do I trust, because Texas A&M plays a very aggressive defense. Do I trust Tennessee and their shooters on the road? No. And you might say, look, they're due to make some shots. They're shooting under 30% in league play on the road. But Texas A&M shooting 23% at home from three. They're overdue to have some shots fall. Give me big game Wade Taylor at home. I think A&M can play its game here and live on the offensive glass. You agree with that one, Greg, right?
I do. Yeah, I love the spot too. It's a bounce back spot for A&M. Tennessee, who's kind of been rolling lately outside of the game. They had to go to Rupp. But yeah, all the points you made, I'm with it. This is one of my favorite plays in the card today.
All right, let's get to the marquee matchup of the day. We've already talked a lot about it, and that's Duke versus Illinois tonight. Greg, we've already made our cases. We will let's do we'll call it, I'll be generous. We'll call it 9, the spread 9, and we'll do a t-shirt bet.
Let's do it.
Uh, so Calabrese, you have a look at a prop for this game.
Yeah, with Dr. Nick not here on the show, I got to tip my cap and go with at least one player prop in the episode. Cooper Flag over 31.5 when you combine his points, rebounds, and assists. It's just at -108 over at FanDuel. He's cleared this prop in 10 of his last 14 games, and you've seen him explode in big non-conference games. This combination of points, rebounds, and assists against Auburn, 37, against Arizona, 34, against Kentucky, 39. And I think the big part of it is, you guys mentioned the issue schematically and personnel wise. How do you defend this guy? I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to send defenders in waves at him, but he's a good enough passer and he has enough upside to have 7 or 8 assists in this game. He's hit those numbers before, skip passes and looking at cutters going towards the basket. So even if he doesn't score 25 points, this prop is not dead. I think he's going to be able to do it on the glass with the assists. And there's always a possibility for, as you guys mentioned, the bottom to fall out with this Illinois team in terms of their heart, in terms of just feeling as though they're snowed under, and him going for a huge monster game on a national scene with the attention of everyone in New York City, the eyes on him. So this is a kid who's played in huge basketball games with huge media attention since he was 15 years old. He rises to the occasion in spots like this. So 31.5, at least by my projections, is off by 3. So I'll go with over on Cooper Flag.
Yeah, if I'm Illinois, by the way, I just let, like I mentioned before, I just let Flag get his, and I don't let Duke and their shooters beat me as well as Flag, because Flag is probably going to get his anyway. Greg, the last thing I'll ask you about this game, since you're pretty tuned in with the Big Ten, is there any merit to the fact that Illinois, if you watch them, yes, they've been dealing with all this other stuff, but it also feels like they're pressing at times, right? They just like, it looks like they're just trying too hard and they're just not comfortable. Is there any merit to the fact that, like, okay, they're out of Big Ten play, no one expects them to win this game, like they can exhale and play a little freer here? Like, is there any merit to that potential hypothesis?
I think there could be. I mean, the hard part for me with Illinois and their psyche is that they've been out of Big Ten play for the better part of a month. I mean, their losing streak happened over a month ago now. If there was going to be an exhale moment, it could have happened by now in some of these underdog games. And to me, it strikes me more that the health stuff is one thing. This is a team built around really 2 supposed lottery pick freshmen from out of America that I think came here to win basketball games. Once they realized they're not winning basketball games, I don't know what the motivations have been for Kasparas Yakashonis lately. He hasn't looked right for over a month. He had his worst game of the season against Wisconsin, where he had 7 turnovers to 0 assists. I mean, he's just way too good for that. So to that point, there's going to be a lot of NBA scouts in this building. Maybe you get Kasparas' best for the first time in months, but it would be the first time in months if we see that type of performance from Illinois. And as you mentioned on the Thursday show, no Morez Johnson, I think, has hurt this team pretty significantly. They're short on horses, and they need their 2 stars to be stars again.
Greg, let me ask you this real quick. If Yakuchonis' name was, I don't know, I'll pull an all-American name out of here, Greg Wadell. If his name was Greg Wadell, do you think he would be in the lottery pick discussion, or do you think there's a little bit of the goo-goo eyes from NBA GMs for any combo guard, versatile player coming from the international scene?
You're reverse Kevin Willarding me right now. He said Derek Queen should be the first pick if he was white European. No, I think Kasparas is a special talent. I think he's a lottery pick, but his whole game is predicated on step-back jumpers, and he was hitting 45% from 3 in non-conference play on those step-back jumpers. In conference play, he's barely cracking 30% from 3. So they're tough shots. I think teams have scouted him and figured out what he does. And again, against Duke, who's that good defensively and just has waves of talented guards they can throw at you, it's going to be an uphill battle.
You know what Illinois needs tonight? They need a big Will Riley game.
Yeah.
He's capable of going for like 2025. They might need that tonight. All right, before we get to some Moneyline underdog looks, if you want access to all of Action's pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. You also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, Moneyline, and total bets, and real ticket money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today and use code BBOC20 at sign up. One more time, that's BBOC20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, let's talk some Moneyline underdogs for today. Calabrese, what do you got?
I'm going to start with South Dakota Coyotes at nearly 2-1 against Omaha. Coyotes are red hot. They've won 5 of 6, including a 4-point win over Omaha about 3 weeks ago. Now, listen, their defense is awful, but they push the pace to the second fastest team behind Alabama in the entire country, and they create extra possessions. So even though they're sloppy on the defensive end and they give up good looks, with the game increasing in terms of overall possessions, sometimes those bad runs where they're giving up 2 and 3 straight possessions with good looks, it doesn't hurt them quite as much. What is interesting is by playing so fast, you think they'd be a little bit sloppy with the basketball, but they are not. They are +4 in the turnover margin, which is 14th in the entire country. So I think this is a spot where this is a lot closer to a coin flip. So getting 2-1 on my money is advantageous. And also, I think in terms of guard play, they have the best guard on the floor. Chase Forte is someone who can get to the basket and get to the line consistently, which is what I really like when you take your show on the road. Sometimes those threes don't fall at the same rate, but if you can get to the line, you can stabilize your scoring. He's had 6 or more foul shot attempts in 6 of his last 7 games. I think the Coyotes get it done. And I know, Stuck, you're always looking for an opportunity to fade Nebraska Omaha.
I can't figure out Nebraska Omaha. I've given up trying to figure them out. But yeah, I know that their defense is bad. Sutton is good. I just can't get a read on them on a game-to-game basis. So, but I don't hate the play. Greg, you're gonna get a little crazy.
I'm going to get crazy. I do not love the underdogs today. I will say that. There wasn't much in the short to medium dog range that I'm really looking to add to the card. So why not take a shot on a team that I'm willing to fade against anybody on earth right now? I would take my men's league team at 8-1 to beat Kansas in a 40-minute basketball game right now. This team hates each other. I called this out last March. I think we all did. And what do you know? They did hate each other. Bill Self was like, let's fast forward to next year. This team also hates each other. We're coming off a Kansas performance where Bill Self got to the podium and said, yeah, we just need some time away from each other. They do not like being in the same room with each other. It's visibly obvious. And it also has a personnel issue here where he's trying to play 3 bigs at the same time. He's playing KJ Adams at the 3 next to Flory Badunga and Hunter Dickinson, just because presumably those are the only guys on the team he can get to play hard. AJ Store's a locker room destroyer. It's an all-time bad moment for Kansas basketball right now. They really can lose to anybody. And I understand Fog Allen's different, but I don't think we've seen this hit the bottom yet. And we got some weird reports this week that Bill Self wanted the Oklahoma State job years ago, right before they're playing Oklahoma State. I just have this weird feeling we're going to see an all-time meltdown at some point this season. Who knows if it will be today or not. But look, Oklahoma State has been playing better. I'm not going to sit here and write home about them being a good basketball team, but they've covered the number in 5 of 6 games. They were in a 2-possession game at Houston and at Texas Tech with a minute left. I think they at least motivationally get up for the big games on this schedule right now. They're excited for the opportunity, and Kansas is vulnerable. And if you want one schematic reason to believe that Oklahoma State will at least have some chances here, their biggest offensive concern to me is turning the ball over. They do it constantly. Kansas just doesn't force turnovers. Defensively, that's not what they want to do. So Oklahoma State should get a few extra possessions. Maybe they hit some shots and get lucky. Maybe this implodes. 8-1. Give me the Cowboys.
Bold. For me, I'm not going as bold. Although after discussing the Illinois game with you, Illinois is a money line shot. I don't hate because the more I think about it, like there's a lot of variance in this game with like how healthy they are. They're probably gonna have to shoot a ton of threes. Do they get the 3-point variance? Do their stars go off, or do they just quit? So like there's blowout risk, and I think Illinois, if everything goes right, they have the talent to win this game outright. So I don't hate Illinois as like a high variance play, since there's just a lot of variance in that game. on a neutral court. But I'll throw out a short one in Arkansas, just a spot play. Missouri coming off, I think the Missouri's at the very peak of their market with that roster. I mean, they've been incredible. They've been the second best team in the country since January 1st per Torvik. Their offense has been great, but bit of a letdown spot here. Now, these teams on the bubble that need to win, you can get in trouble just blindly betting them because why? Well, number one, sometimes there's a premium to back them. And number two, there's a reason that they're on the bubble. And I, has the team changed? No. The reason that they're on the bubble is because they're usually flawed rosters. But I do think Arkansas has changed. I mean, they've been a completely different team since losing Fland, who was shooting 27% from 2 and 3 in league play. The last game that he played hurt. He was like, I think 2 of 13 or 14 against Missouri and was just awful in that game. Over the last 6 games, Arkansas's been a top 20 team in the country, a top 5 defense. They have road wins at Texas, road wins at Kentucky, and they went right to the wire with Alabama, Auburn, and Texas A&M. This team's playing a lot better. I do think that they're fundamentally different. They've kind of settled into their roles. It's a pretty good spot. So I'll throw out Arkansas as a spot look for an underdog money line. All right, before we get out of here, one final best bet. Calabrese, I know you alluded to this one on the Big Bets on Campus podcast in our late week episode. What do you got for your final bet?
Going to the Big Sky, it's the stretch run before they go to Starch Madness in Boise, Idaho. And this is an important game for both of these teams because they still have an opportunity to grab that bye into the quarterfinals. The thing about it is Eastern Washington is horrific on the glass, and it's what Northern Arizona does really, really well. Carson Tout is one of the best rebounders in the entire country. All of his offensive production comes off of putbacks. In the game against Eastern Washington, the first go-around, he was in foul trouble, actually fouled out of that game, had 6 turnovers, by far his worst game of the entire year. They still won by 9 in Cheney. So the fact that they're laying 3.5 in the spot does not scare me away at all. And also, in terms of the home and away splits, Trent McLaughlin, their fire flame shooter, he's a volume 3-point shooter. He can go off. He just went off on their home floor for 35 points. I think he's a deadlock to go for over his season average of 22. So you get the best scorer on the floor. You get a rebounding advantage. They're probably going to get 15 to 20 offensive rebounds. I believe they had 15 in the first meeting. As long as Tout doesn't get in foul trouble, I think there's going to be more fortuitous whistles on their home floor. So give me the Lumberjacks in a critical game.
Headed to the Big Sky. Where are you headed, Greg?
I'm going to the SEC, and I could have taken this as my money line underdog. I'm going to take Ole Miss plus 105 on the money line to win at Vandy. You can get it plus 1.5 if you want the extra point. But I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, but for about a month now, Chris Beard has been shaking his ass for the Indiana job. And Rick Pitino went viral yesterday on the Barstool podcast for just saying Chris Beard should be the hire at Indiana. Dusty May signed an extension last night. Indiana has no idea where to turn. This is a big audition game for Chris Beard. Statement win today. With the timing of this, he really could put himself in pole position to get the Indiana job. Ole Miss is a better basketball team than Vandy. Both these teams are 19-7 right now, but Chris Beard's had a week to prep. They're coming off the rivalry loss, a game they, quite frankly, should not have lost at home to Mississippi State. They jumped on them early and then just got outplayed for 30 minutes. I expect Ole Miss's best here, and Vanderbilt's coming off of a gauntlet. They've lost 5 of their last 6, but back-to-back road games at Tennessee, at Kentucky before this, with at Florida and Auburn sprinkled in there. Like, this is kind of like one of those games, spots in the season where I expect the fatigue of the season to catch up to them a little bit. And you look just schematically in this game, Vandy's defense is entirely dependent on forcing turnovers. They really aren't good at anything unless they're forcing teams to give it up. And Ole Miss just doesn't turn it over. The #1 team in the country at taking care of the basketball and half-court offense. So I like Ole Miss to win this game. It's a huge spot for Chris Beard and a statement win, I think.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a spot tax on this line with Vandy because they've lost a bunch in a row. And I think this is a good matchup for the Ole Miss front court as well. So I would tend to agree with you here. For my final best bet, I'm going to go with Notre Dame catching points at home against the corpse of Pitt. I guess Pitt still has life to go to the tournament. I don't see it, but I think this will be the final nail in their coffin today. For what it's worth, this team's 355th in momentum, 355th away from home metric per Haslametrics. They've been awful away from home for the better part of 2 months. They've been bad just overall for 2 months straight. If you filter out results in January 1st, Pitt 103rd overall per Torvik. Notre Dame's 100th. Notre Dame's been a better team. Pitt lost a key rotational piece recently. Notre Dame actually got healthier. They got a couple guys back that they were without for multiple games. What Notre Dame look, if you look at that SMU game, I do think they'll show up here. They got embarrassed on their home court earlier this week, and I think they match up fairly well. This Notre Dame team can get bullied by a lot of power conference teams. That's not going to be the case against Pitt, which is pretty soft inside. Notre Dame, I think, could actually win the rebounding battle here, and they have the shooters to take advantage of a porous Pitt perimeter defense. So I think, and you have the better coach. So I think this is the final nail in the coffin for a Pitt team that has been corpse-like for pretty much 2 months now. So give me the Fighting Irish at home. That'll do it for us. Thanks to Mike and Greg for joining me. Thanks to our producers on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. Make sure you follow all of our bets in the Action Network app. Bad karma if you don't have the app. I'm putting that on all of you, any of you listening who don't have the app. So make sure you download the app, follow us there. Good luck on all of your wagers. It's the final Saturday before March. Make sure you tune in. And for all of our coverage throughout the madness, cannot wait. Good luck on all of your wagers today. Podcast episodes, 3 next week, 3-man weave early in the week. And then we'll have 2 more episodes Tuesday and Thursday. Wherever you listen to podcasts, Big Bets on Campus. We'll see you there. Good luck. Cheers.